It's John Bone from Rock History Music. Will Turpin is our guest from Collective Soul. Will Turpin was raised in Stockbridge, Georgia. He's been the steadfast bassist and harmony vocalist for Collective Soul since 1994. Will's childhood unfolded at Reel to Reel Studios, a famous outlet for a lot of musicians. The recording haven was founded by his father, Bill Turpin, in 1976, just outside Atlanta. It was in that studio's basement, surrounded by tape decks and mixing boards, that a teenage Will laid down his first drum tracks. It was an environment that eventually would have Collective Soul first record there, specifically on their breakthrough smash, Shine. Following his father's passing, Will decided to take over the studio, continuing the family legacy as a producer and mentor for emerging artists. Beyond Collective Soul, Turpin is a very versatile musician, releasing solo work under the indie label Gooey Music, including the EP The Lighthouse in 2011 and the 2018 album Serengeti Drivers. The band Collective Soul broke onto the scene with that hit Shine in 1994 and the huge albums Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid. Their self-titled album the following year gave us more hits like December and The World I Know. And it's been one great album after another, with singles like Precious Declaration, Listen, Heavy, and Run. Our special guest, bassist Will Turpin. Tell people who your dad was.
Oh man, he was the guy who just loved music was everything to him. He grew up an only child and gravitated towards music. Neither one of his parents were musicians, but they supported him. Um, Both of his parents, I think it's important to note, his parents both had master's degrees, lifelong educators, in an era where it was different for people to basically, they didn't have their only child till they were in their 30s. It was a different era. And they had one child when they were in their mid 30s, so they were double income, no kids, kind of in the 50s kind of thing. But they really supported my father, even though he was out of the box as far as they were probably a little more conservative. But my dad, man, he's the guy that if he saw somebody else could do it, he's like, I can do it too. Music came naturally to him, but the things that he had to learn and kind of, basically read a book to go do were things like, I'm going to start my own studio, as a ways to the means. He was a songwriter and in a band. So he got the book on studios, and our dining room table was never a dining room table. It was always a drafting board, or where you were designing some graphic arts for his own record label, or lyrics or albums. The albums were always out too. So he influenced me musically, and then just having that studio in the tiny town, 2 streets over, the Rowland brothers. I got to see not only did my father's music influence me with the albums he had around, but I got to see everything growing up in that tiny town and going down to the studio. Um, one of my favorite bands was a bluegrass band. I used to try to sneak in there and listen to them. They were so aggressive for a bluegrass band, and of course it was Atlanta. There was R&B, there was rock and roll, there was all kind of stuff there that was coming through. A lot of country. But my dad was always, man, he was always the guy, and he had a lot of friends. There was a lot of people at his funeral. And I still see people all the time that are like, sorry I couldn't make your dad's funeral. I was like, man, he knew you. He knew how much you loved him. And don't worry about it, because a lot of people showed up, So I still see people all the time that wish they would have been there. But he was always ready to give a helping hand to anybody who was trying to figure out anything in the industry. It didn't matter if it was the music store that was upstairs to the studio. Um, he let people put stuff on layaway, and it wasn't an official business where he really had a layaway. It was just, how much can you give me today? Okay, take the Alvarez. I trust you. Take that guitar. Pay me back for those couple harmonicas next week. Um, and we didn't have a lot of money, so I don't know where that attitude. We didn't want for anything out, and I think my father had many kids because he was an only child, but I'm the oldest of five. We didn't want for anything, but it was certainly a lower middle class lifestyle, especially when you're depending on musicians to pay the bills. That's what I always tell people. Recording studios aren't necessarily a gold mine, but yeah, that he was just friend to all. So many people were friends with him, and and he was always eager to pass on the torch whenever he could. And I think he saw that in us, and he certainly saw that in Ed when he took when he gave Ed the reins to the studio.
People forget that you guys do live in a different world till the payoffs do happen.
Yeah, man, we're the dreamers of dreams, man. We dream it up. It's not like we put in an application and go to an interview and see if we get the job. We pull it out of thin air. And with that in mind, yeah, bankers don't understand that. Like Rick said, yeah, mortgages are rather tough when you put self-employed musician on your on your application. But yeah, man, and there is payoffs, and there's certainly the record industry and recording can make you lots and lots of money being an entertainer. But it's different. It's different, and even for us that are in the music industry, it is one of the most complicated industries to understand. But yeah, you just keep dreaming it up, and it's almost like it's not an addiction. It's more of just you can't do anything else. But every now and then, your brain wants to just create something out of thin air, and we still do it. It still comes naturally to us.
You guys are my favorite band from the 90s, and I'm more going, you're one of my favorite bands of all time, but I listened to the record and I'm going, holy,
We're
like,
still having fun.
but no, but the music is
Yeah.
so potent and it's still important. You guys still got it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I mean, Ed's 61, I'm 54. It's not like athletes. We're creating some of the best music in our lives, man. Time and place is always something you have to consider, right? So the first record, the second record, the 90s, that's always going to be a different zone. But creation wise, I think we're creating some of the best stuff we've ever done in our lives.
How do you look at luck?
I think it's lucky when you grow up next to Ed and Dean and you're I'm my father's son. I think that's lucky. I don't think it's lucky when we put that music together and we showed people what we could do. We just wanted people to give us a chance, especially after the first record, which is why the second record is just Collective Soul. We just wanted people to give us a chance, and we didn't come by that with luck. When the frequencies hit people's ears, it made their head turn, and that's not lucky.
But you didn't have to be that guy that was your father's son. You didn't have to be, you paid attention to the right things. I mean, there's that thing that happens when you follow your instincts, I think, that
Yeah,
after a while you pick the right things out of the right situations. You make good decisions. I mean, I'm not saying that's luck. I'm just saying
right.
that's also smarts. I mean, discerning.
And it came naturally to me. I mean, everybody in my family has some form of musical talent because the instruments were everywhere and we all played music. But it always came naturally to me, whether it was piano lessons at 8 years old, and my piano teacher's like, how do you like music theory? None of my students like music theory. I'm like, nobody told me I wasn't supposed to like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Or all the way to college. I'm in percussion, trying out for timpani spots with the Florida State Symphony, and I get the spot with the Florida State Symphony at 19 years old. It's always just something that I loved and I absorbed, no matter what the instrument was or what the style of music was.
You have your own band and everyone has their own outlets, but how have you kept it together for all these years?
30 something years later, but in some regard, me, Ed, and Dean still feel like those kids in Stockbridge, Georgia. Like,
So he still lives in you, that kid. That kid's still very much in you.
yeah, yeah. And I think because we've known each other our whole lives, that's part of it. Uh, yeah, I'm 54, but that same drive, that same feel, it's still exactly the same to us.
McCartney's the ultimate example. And he always cites the fact that that kid still lives in him.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I follow McCartney. He's my favorite. There's the Wings poster right there. That's a Wings
Hey,
banner. There's the Beatles tickets from every American show framed up on the
how'd
American
you
tour they did.
how'd you get that?
It was actually a collector's piece and it was already put together.
That's
So
great.
yeah, I know it's
So,
got one ticket from every city they played on the American tour.
Oh,
Super cool. And somewhere along the line, I realized, and I love Lennon's solo stuff as well as Harrison's. But somewhere along the line, I realized, and that's probably because I listened to a lot of Beatles, basically 65 and forward, from Help on. But at some point, I realized I think I like the Wings records and the Paul McCartney solo records better. But, it's
no one's
not,
wrong when it comes to music. I always say that no one, you like what you like, right?
yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's not like it's better or worse. It's just, it is what it is.
In the 70s, you were a preteen. How you were obviously musical then. What what did the 70s do to you as a kid?
Say that, in that era, I was probably a little bit more 80s, but like I see your albums behind you, and I've got my Discogs app. I can tell you exactly how many records I have over here next to me. But I've only got about 500 records. But you know, yeah, even growing up uh, in the 80s, where U2, NXS, REM was a big deal. We were from Georgia, obviously.
Hmm.
Uh, all those things were big. But I would even when I was a teenager in the 80s, my favorite bands were probably the 70s. You mentioned Rush. Me and Shane, original Collective Soul. We couldn't get enough Rush. And then the Wings greatest hits. Steve Miller, all the Queen, Pink Floyd. For the longest time, I mean, you would ask me my five favorite bands. It would all been British Invasion from the late '60s, '70s. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, my favorite is Venus and Mars. As far as Wings, if I have to pick one, I just Venus and Mars just grabs me by the soul. But I do love Back of the Egg, and I really love London Town a lot. I love London Town a lot.
The documentary, what was that like? The process? I mean, obviously, it's supposed to be a fly on the wall, but you're conscious. It's like reality TV. What was the experience like for you?
I thought that was like the coolest twist that we did with the documentary. We started, you don't start out your career going, "Hey, let's collect and organize everything we do every year." So we started this trek probably 4 years ago, and then we were kind of stuck in the mud, being our own production company. And Phonetics came in, production company out of L.A. area,
Mhm.
through Fred Crochelle, and that was the saving grace. And then we had the idea of, okay, let's combine some modern footage of us. We're about to record at Elvis's estate in Palm Springs. That's kind of cool. Um, and let's combine some modern footage and then do the whole rewind thing. Let's rewind back to the baseball fields in Stockbridge, Georgia. So I thought that was one of the coolest twists of the documentary. But Joe, who's the director, with Phonetics, the production company, they were perfect at being fly on the wall, not getting in our way, having fun with us, and making us feel like we were still had camaraderie with them behind the lens. But they stayed out of the way in a perfect way, and that's the coolest artistic switch I think we did with the documentary is allow people to see the recording of Here to Eternity while we're talking about a 30-year career. I thought that was one of the coolest things. It was a time capsule. That house was an absolute time capsule. We had a friend of a friend who had bought it basically, lack of a better term, he had bought it on the court steps. It was in an era where Palm Springs property was not booming like it is now. It's back. So he bought it probably 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, but he didn't want to do anything aggressive to it because it was literally just like Elvis had left it. Um, After we left, he's going to actually renovate some stuff, but try to keep it
Yeah.
Palm Springs Elvis. But yeah, man, it was somewhat not functional. There was only one bathroom that worked. The pool was clean and everything was clean. And we made that one living room look really cool. We dressed it out ourselves. Got some rental furniture from a Palm Springs joint that if you just go down Main Street, Palm Springs, you're going to find all the cool furniture, mid-century modern furniture you need. And put a piano in there, and then set it up in there, and made it look cool. But you start going to the other rooms. I mean, it was literally time capsule from 1970 something. Ed or Elvis's red carpet in his bedroom, Priscilla's pink tiles in the master bedroom, uh, it was all still there, man. The jacuzzi. I love telling the jacuzzi story because Elvis was victim of one of the first like modern paparazzi stories when he was in his jacuzzi. A helicopter gets over and zooms in, gets some pictures of Elvis with some USC cheerleaders. And so the jacuzzi's off to the side. And what he did was he put some translucent, like waterproof things above the jacuzzi. And you could tell it was just something that he had one of his buddies do. And it's not like it's done shabby, but it's not like some professional Elvis thing you would think of. And all those little translucent panels were still there, so he could still get in his jacuzzi with whoever he wanted to, and then have to worry about a zoom lens from a helicopter. But yeah, so it was literally a time capsule, and just a great vibe for us because Elvis is an Elvis, man. He's especially from the South, man. There's a lot of heritage there, and a lot of pride there. Yeah.
Tell me about your band. Tell me about your band.
Yeah, Will in the Way, and I'm going to get back in the studio in the fall where I block some time out. It's kind of like, I was saying piano. Piano is my first instrument. I see everything. I see everything through the scope of a keyboard. When I play bass, my bass lines are in my head on a piano. And that way, it's not anything I choose to do. It's just the way it happens because, just like I mentioned, always being into and understanding music theory. When I look at a keyboard, music theory is very visual to me, and I can tell exactly what I'm doing in comparison. I can hear what the guitar parts are doing, where they're at on the keyboard. Vocals, where are those at on the keyboard? They're right here. Let's make the space and do the right things in the right space. But I've got this whole other, pop, maybe a little funky, little pop funky side to me when I get behind a piano or a Wurlitzer. And and so I started recording some of those songs. The first record was 2010, and Serengeti Drivers came out early 2019, and I'm about to do another one. So it's all guys that I've known for a while, especially Mark Wilson on bass. Mark's father and my father were good friends, and I remember seeing Mark at a coffee shop when he was 13 playing with his older brother Brian. Brian, who's another great vocalist and guitar player, but they're two brothers that were just great instrumentalists that grew up in our area in Stockbridge. So Mark's been with me on bass the whole time, and I just fill it out with some of my musical friends. Depending on the era, I just fill it out with all my musical friends, and call it Will in the Way. That way, I can always just morph around to whatever the way is. That.
Collective Soul, one of the great American bands. They're from Stockbridge, Georgia. Formed in the early 90s, actually 1992, with lead vocalist and guitarist Ed Roland, who's their main songwriter, along with his brother Dean Roland on rhythm guitar. They were one of the top post-grunge bands that were right in the vein of alternative rock. The original lineup also included bassist Will Turpin, drummer Shane Evans, and lead guitarist Ross Childress. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the Roland brothers, who were brought up in a very strict Christian family. And for many years, the boys didn't really have access to rock and roll. The band's breakthrough came with their debut album, Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid. It was released in 1993. Initially, it was intended to be a demo, but then the album's success was propelled by the hit single Shine, a raw and passionate tune that builds. It received a lot of airplay on college radio stations and MTV. It's also, as of this taping, their biggest song on Spotify with 200 plus million listens. Shine became a defining anthem of the 1990s. It reached number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100 and really secured the band's position in rock music. Following this unexpected success, Collective Soul released their self-titled second album in 1995, which solidified their reputation. The album featured multiple hit singles, including the gritty Toe Tap in December and the slower The World I Know. Singer and songwriter Ed Roland says it was the ultimate song about compassion and finding perspective. Even the video shows a character losing all hope until he gets a sign. Also on the album, the rebellious and explosive tune Gel. All the singles got lots of airplay. Their third album, Discipline Breakdown, in 1997, continued their commercial success. It produced hits like that electric storm of Precious Declaration and Listen, a tune about standing up in spite of what hits you. and they all perform well on rock radio charts. By 1999, Collective Soul released Dosage. It's an album that featured a new period of creative maturity for the band, an evolution. It featured the hit single, Heavy, and combined that visceral, that intense rock vein that was a trademark for the band. And it spent a record-breaking 15 weeks at the top of the mainstream rock charts. The early 2000s saw Collective Soul continuing to evolve with their sound with the album Blender. It included the pop-infused single Why Part 2, and a notable collaboration with Elton John, one of their heroes, on the track Perfect Day. Trio of Ed Roland, Dean Roland, and Will Turpin really remained dedicated to the band's vision. They released Youth in 2004 and Afterwards in 2007. Both did well. In 2009 came the Rabbit album. It was self-titled, but fans called it Rabbit. It included the hit Staring Down. Collective Soul's enduring appeal lies in their ability to adapt and reinvent themselves. While they stayed true to their rock roots, they continued to release new music, like See What You Started by Continuing in 2015 and Blood in 2019. They sold well over 20 million albums worldwide, and their May 2024 album was a double feature, a double record, Here to Eternity. It's been called a thrilling, no-skip effort from start to finish. Tell me the story about you're getting, I mean, you knew him already, obviously, for a while, a long time. Ed calling you up and say, hey, man, you want to play bass on, with the Shine thing, the university. I mean, that song is definitely, and you guys have a lot of those where you, like I said a while ago, you stop and you go, what? And Mickey Thomas on the, I love Mickey.
Mickey made like so many appearances on the documentary. What a great guy. And
God.
He has a home in Palm Springs, and we all became friends. And then we became friends like maybe only a few years before the documentary was filmed. But we just kept inviting him over, and the cameras were on. So yeah.
I remember Jason Sheff was telling me the story about joining Chicago, and he said, "Oh yeah, but they wanted Mickey Thomas." I'm going, Jason, are you remembering that right? So I'm texting Mickey Thomas. I'm going, Mickey, is that true? He says, "Damn, yeah, that's true. Come on, that's true." Okay, Shine. How long had you known Ed when he called you for that particular?
I mean, I've known Ed my whole life, and so it's really hard one to explain with people. Where they're like, what do you mean you weren't in the band? I was like, well, I was around them all the time. I absorbed everything Ed had done his whole career, all the solo records. We would sneak into shows when Ed was playing with other people. My best friend Shane, as soon as high school's out, he's Ed's drummer. But yeah, the household I grew up in, my mom would always be like, yeah, don't try to be in a rock band. Please don't try to do that. So I was more, like I said, I really loved the whole symphony thing, and I was schooling it. I was a performance major, then I switched to orchestration major. And at some point, and Ed and Dean, we all, all these memories are a little hazy. Ed and Dean remember talking about it like, why doesn't Will want to join the band? And I don't ever remember not wanting to join the band. I remember just being hesitant because I was like, well, I'd have to drop out of school, man. I'm in my 5th year of school right now. And we were still unsigned at the moment. But at a certain point, as far as the clique goes, the chemistry, the sum of the parts is worth more than the individuals. We all knew that if I got to bass, we'd have the best chemistry, the best band. Let's use the word band. It's not a group of musicians. A band can be a group of anything that works together and achieves a goal, right? So we knew that we'd be the strongest if I played bass. And when I called Ed the one day and said I'll play bass, I literally had never played bass, but it didn't matter, and there's a learning curve there. But again, I'm thinking about everything like a keyboard.
Yeah.
And even when I listen to the bootlegs of '94 and I'm playing bass less than a year, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we're pretty good. Yeah.
Well, the keyboard helps that, though. I mean, this, drummers
Your
and
best friend
keyboardists
on
too.
drums, understanding everything about the feel of the music, that's way more important than saying I was a quote unquote bass player.
Second album, that's like one of the greatest albums I've ever heard in my life. But at there any point where you guys looked at each other and said, "Holy snapping turtles, this is something here."
Honestly, it wasn't. We never thought we were cool. We never thought we were too cool for school. We never thought we were like, hey, look at us. It was never that. But yeah, we knew our music was special. We knew if we got in the studio, people were gonna probably dig what we come up with. It just felt that way. It was just a feeling. It's not a conscious decision. It was literally just the way we felt. Give us a chance, Atlantic Records. And that was the deal when we let them put the stamp on the first record that was kind of half recorded as a band, half was stuff that's Ed's doing almost entirely by himself for a songwriter demo. But that was the deal with Atlantic Records. If you want to take this one that's already together that we don't think is a great representation of what we can do, then the deal is you're going to let us get right back in the studio and guarantee us a release as soon as possible. So the second record comes out 15 months after the first record, and we toured. We probably played in the 94 through 97. It was no problem for us to play 200 shows. We probably played 200 shows that year and recorded the second record. And then the second record was bam. We're at the end of the studio time recording the second record, and Sammy Hagar wouldn't take no for an answer. Our agent told him we were going to take a break after the second record because we had done so much. And Sammy Hagar, he just doesn't take no for an answer when Sammy wants something. He's going to get to the source. He's not going to listen to an agent in New York, So we got a call in the studio, finishing up the second record. Back in an era where there would be a receptionist taking phone calls, and then a little button they'd hit. If it was just something that required a message, we'd come out of the studio and look at our messages. But every now and then they'd hit a button, and they hit that button that day, and it was like, Ed, Sammy Hagar's on the phone, wants to talk to you. And it's like, all right, cool. I'll be right back, guys.
Hanging out or opening for Van Halen. I mean,
And look, fair warning. That's one of my favorite records of all time. That's David Lee Roth there, man. But no, I thought there was an evolution and a lift off there with Sammy that was super special to be a part of it. And we did the Balance tour, so that was their last recording together. But yeah, man, we talk about it in the documentary a little bit, and Sammy's in the documentary. But man, they really did something to us personally and to our career. The way they treated us, the way the camaraderie felt. I still own a couple things that Eddie Van Halen gave me. They're some of the most precious things I have.
you guys treaded on it lightly with the last manager. I mean, I've talked to the Grand Funk guys. I've talked to Joey Mullen of Badfinger about 6 months before he died about the management situation. And I can understand probably Ed's, and I know that he balanced it. We're all good, we're all bad in the documentary. But was there any a time when you guys were making $150 a week when there was a lot of money coming in? Was there ever a time where the band felt like say, okay, we can't do this? And how did you feel about that era? Did you ever think of quitting?
That's a good tie into Van Halen because everything was happening so quick. And like I said, we went right back in the studio and then Atlantic Records had that scheduled date ready for us. They lived up to their word. So there was no time for us to go, wait a second, there's something seems wrong here because we're literally talking about 12 months, 200 shows. Something seems wrong here. So on that spring, early summer, we're talking to Eddie. Eddie was always in our dressing room. I tell people I don't know if it's because he was super bored with his bandmates or just interested in the Southern boys and what their lives were like. But he was always in our dressing room, and we confided in him. And he goes, "Yeah, it's definitely not right. I'm going to get you an interview with a lawyer that I know, and I want y'all to seek out another couple lawyers and do a couple interviews, and you're going to have to start. You got to start treading down a path of lawsuit." And so the $150 a week came in once we filed the lawsuit. Atlantic Records, based on what we were getting before, was only everything gets locked up once a lawsuit starts, right? So they were for a period of about 9 months, they were only able to give us $150 a week.
One of the biggest bands in the
man.
world.
But yeah, and We kept chugging, man. We weren't sad about it at all either, man. We weren't sad. We were going forward. Uh, I mean, he was definitely cheating us, and you know, and you trust people. We're musicians, and this is common story. You know, musicians to say we're not businessmen, for the most part, you know, we're not businessmen. And when somebody does stuff for you, invests money in there for you, you start to trust them. And we were super trustworthy and got burned a little bit, but none of us look back on that and think we got burned or something bad happened. We're just like, hey man, that's the way it went down. Let's go. Let's go forward. Let's keep rocking.
Hey man, it's been really enjoyed this. You know, I do a lot of interviews. Really enjoy this. You're a good guy. Good luck with the doc. I mean, listen, you don't need luck. You the man. Good for you, man. Continued success.
Cheers, John. Thanks for your time as well, man. Appreciate it, buddy.
Take care, man. Bye.
Thanks.
Remember, if you want to donate to the channel, there's a PayPal link at the very top of the description. Make sure you comment on our video, subscribe to our channel, click the bell notification, like our videos, and share them. Until next time, I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music.